Hello Jacko, in today's video we'll be making this awesome camera overlay in DaVinci Resolve and we'll be making it as a template, but we'll do that in the next video. In today's video though, I'll just show you how to make this effect. What we'll be able to do is change the shape. You will be able to adjust the border and you'll also be able to change the position of the camera. But because I want to adjust many other things and I haven't figured out all of those details yet, that is why I'll be showing you how to make the template in another video. But some of the options that you'll be able to adjust is the border style, and if you want to have an animation, in this case the color is rotating round. And you can also change the style if you want to have a displace or maybe you don't want to have a displace. This will be totally up to you, but in this case I think this looks nice. But now let's make this effect from the beginning. So in the edit page, you'll go to the media pool, right click, make a new fusion composition, give it a name and change the duration. I'll go with 15 seconds. Make it, put it onto a timeline, select it and go into the fusion page. Now inside here you will want to have some image or video that you want to use. In this case I'll just use this one. It's a 4K resolution, as you can see. So this is what I'll use as a template, but you should use a video that will make with your own camera and also set the project resolution and the timeline resolution to what you will have. In this case I have 2560 by 1440p. Now, like with most things, you have multiple ways on how to achieve the camera overlay. I decided to use rectangle as a base. I could also use an ellipse if I just wanted an ellipse, but I chose rectangle because you can adjust the width and you can adjust the current radius to get an ellipse. But with this, you also have an option to maybe make a little bit more vertical kind of shape, and you could then also position it. But for positioning, we'll be using transfer nodes, so the rectangle will stay in the center and the only thing that we'll be adjusting is the width and the height. But this is now a full image. We just want a border, so I'll disable the solid and adjust the border width, and we could also use some soft edges, if that is what we want. Now for the color, I'll use a background node, connect it, display it. In this case I've used the gradient. You can use just a solid color if you want. I chose gradient. We'll go from one side to the other, so default is okay. And let's just change the color like so and like so. Maybe bright blue. So we have this done. It's a little bit basic, so let's make it pop out a little bit. So to do that, we could use shift space and type in glow. And we can use both the glow and the soft glow effect. Default values look okay to me. Let's add soft glow. And I'll just leave it like that for now. I zoomed in on the nodes so you can see them. And what we may want to do now is add some distortion to this. To do that, we'll use the fast noise node. And we can adjust it on the left side. So we'll increase the detail, adjust the contrast, maybe adjust the brightness, scale it up, add some seed rate and seed so it's animated if you want to have it animated, and you can also adjust the discontinuous and inverted, but unless we connect this, we actually won't see how it looks like. So we have to connect the fast noise to the rectangle. We could just use the rectangle as a mask, like so. This is one way how you could do it. It all depends on what you want. So this is one way. How I've done it in the intro is I have used a displace node. So a displace will take in a rectangle and the fast noise will be, so background, and the fast noise will be in the front. So this is what we got. It's totally different than what we had before with just the fast noise node. If it was connected as a mask, so let me make a duplicate, and this is what we had previously. it's totally different, as you can see. So this is what the displace node does. And we can adjust the offset. We'll be leaving this to radial, but we can adjust the offset and refraction strength, but we should connect this to the background and the whole effect so we actually see the result. So we now kinda have the lightning effect. Now in the glow and the soft glow node, you could also go to the color scale and adjust red, green and blue channels. I'll just leave these values to default, but just so you know, this is another option that you can enable when making the template at the end. Now let's say that this rectangle is an ellipse, so the height will be 0.5, and in this case the width has to be 0.28125. Now this value, how I've got it, is basically take the resolution of the timeline, 1440p divided by 2560 divided by 2. Because the original value, as you can see, is half, it's not 1. So this is the value to get a perfect circle. And when you make a template, you can just set this value to be the default. So if you then make any changes, like change the width or the height, and then you double click on it, the height would go back to 0.5 because that's the default. But this one, when you double click, not in this case, I'm using Ctrl Z to go back. In this case, it would go back to this as a default. So you can have an ellipse or make a custom shape. And now the last thing that we need at the moment is to make this effect spin. So the color has to spin. We can make this whole effect spin, so we can use a transfer node, connect it, and we'll simply animate the angle and make it spin like so. So you can store the effect at frame 0, keyframe this. In my case, this is a 15-second composition. If I wanted this animation to be longer than 15 seconds, when it makes a whole circle, I could maybe go to 10 seconds. In this case, this would be frame 300, and I could animate this as 180 degrees. So not a whole circle, it will only make a half circle in 300 frames. As you can see now it stops. And what we need to do now is extend the animation, and to do that we'll use the spline option. Click on the three dots and select show only selected tool. So only the selected tool shows up. If it doesn't, simply select the node. And we only have the angle option available because this is the one that we've animated. So select it, click zoom to fit to see all of the keyframes, select them, and click set relative. And this will make the animation continuous from this point on. So before it stopped, but from this point on, it will continue spinning. And it will spin until the fusion composition ends. Now, as you can see, this is taking quite a bunch of memory in my case, so I'll right click and purge it. This helps for the preview, but if you want to see the animation how it looks like, I suggest to go to playback, timeline proxy resolution, and set this to quarter. Now this will still work, it just won't take up any additional memory, as you can see. But it will look a little bit off when we make the connection to the media in. So this is what we have at the moment. We'll now overlay the last transform over the media in. And this is what it looks like. Not exactly what we want. We want this media in, which is the video, to be inside this shape, which in this case is a circle, but it could also be something else. And as you can see, we also have some issue, and I'll show you how to fix this issue a bit later. So what I'll do now is I'll take this shape, copy it, right click, and paste instance of it. I'll do this because we have to connect it as a mask to the media in. So if I just take an ellipse, so you can see, this is what it looks like. So we need a solid shape. This is currently not a solid shape. So in the instance of this rectangle, I will right click on the solid and the instance it, and I will also instance the border width. I will then set the border width back to 0 and set the solid as a checkbox. So this is now solid. If we take a look at the shape, this is the instance and this is the original. So this instance will be connected to the media in. Now this is all fine, but it's a little bit too big, and this is the issue with the playback timeline resolution. At least it was previously when I was making the effect. So at the moment, I guess I can leave this to off, so current resolution. But now what I need to do is scale this down. Now I could use a transfer node to size it down. That's all good. But if I want to move it around, what happens? Not exactly what I want. I want to focus on my face, not just scale down this part. So to fix that issue, I will use a background node, set the alpha to be transparent, so 0. I will use a merge node, connect it here. Now the background will have to be in the back, so Ctrl T to switch these two inputs. The media in has to be in the front and the background will be in the back. And now I can put this transform in the front. Well, do I actually need it? We'll see. So right now, instead of connecting the instance here, I will connect it to here, which is all good. But now I have a different issue. I still need to scale this down and move the position. Let's select the merge node, change the scale. This works like a charm, at least at the moment, and I can also change the position. So it can be something like this at the moment. Does it still work if I change the shape? So this now works kind of, but as you can see, we're rotating the whole border. You would just want to rotate the color. So let's fix this mess. So how this can be done is I'll disconnect this rectangle and the displace. So this will be used as a mask, and we can connect this as a mask to this merge node. So let's do that, see what we get. Almost exactly what we want. As you can see now, the color is a little bit different than what we would like. So in that case, what you may need to do is adjust the soft glow and the glow values, because in this case, if you just leave them to default, you'll have a full white. So we get some color back. Now this still doesn't look as good as this one, at least in my opinion. But what we could do is go to the rectangle and adjust the soft edge a little bit. And this will make it a little bit more interesting, at least in my opinion. And now this is also a time where you can mess with red, green and blue channels. So this is the effect. I'll now change this back to how it was, as an ellipse. Now to move this whole effect around, we'll add a transfer node at the end. So this is what we'll use as the position, and we can also scale it up or down. Now is there still an issue that we have? If you remember, if I have this height and I play it, well, it works. Now there is also one thing that we could do. Currently, this gradient is animated. So in my case, it will make a whole circle in 20 seconds. But I could also make it so it doesn't animate. To do that, I'll simply use a transfer node. Now in this case, I would guess it would be the best to make a duplicate of it. So copy, paste an instance of it. And why do I say this? Is because if you would have any other changes, like maybe changing the size or something like that, then this would also affect the other transfer nodes. In this case, I will just use the angle, I will deinstance it and set it to 0. So this transform is like this, and this one moves around, as you can see. Let me just check what happens if this one is too big. Do you have any issues? We do. Now in case you would want to have a full screen effect, like maybe you want this rectangle to be 1, 1. 1, 1, and no radius, you have some issues, and that is because this background node is not big enough. So I'll have to go to the image, uncheck the auto resolution, and increase the height and the width, so it fills up the whole screen. Let's add this back to default. So we fix this little issue, but how can we now change between this transform and this one? With a push of a button, we'll use a dissolve node, connect one transform to the front and the other to the back, and connect this to the merge. And what we'll do is instantly change between the background and the foreground. So if I display it on the left, as you can see, it changes. Now to do this automatically, what I'll do is I'll right click on the dissolve node, edit controls, because I want to add a checkbox. I'll put this to the control tabs. So this is controls. I'll select controls here. This will be a checkbox, and I'll give it a name, border color animation. Click OK, and the checkbox appears here, and we'll now make an expression. I'll type in equals, and I'll do if with two i's, so IIF. I'll hold plus, connect it to this one, or you can type it in. If this equals to 0, it will be 0, otherwise it will be 1. Now I'll test this out, how it looks like. So the moment this would be default, so it is animated, and this is not animated. So I either have to switch the expression to equals 1, or I can leave this to 0 and switch these two values. So I would have 1 and 0, or another way would be to select the dissolve node, press Ctrl T to switch between these two inputs, and now this is also true. So this is now the animated one, and this is the static one. Now in case you want to have this big of an image, you would go to the merge node, increase the size, look how it scales nicely, and simply adjust the position to what you want. Now as you can see, if you zoom in with the merge node selected, we have some gaps to the edge itself. So in the instance of the rectangle, we could maybe adjust the border width, since it's already the instance. We would have to increase the value a little bit, but then make sure how it looks like. So in some cases it's a little bit too much. So a tiny adjustment of maybe 0.01 is okay. And now the last thing that I'll do, just before this transform node and after the merge, so this is the whole effect, I'll add some drop shadow to this. So I add the shadow, I'll add drop shadow, and in the drop shadow we can now adjust the distance, set it to minimum, adjust the blur, the shadow strength, and you can also change the shadow color if you want, but I suggest to leave it as black. As you can see, if you do change the color, it messes everything up. Alternatively, we could use the other drop shadow. So use this one. You can increase the softness to get the same kind of result, but in this case you actually can change the color of the shadow. So this is the final composition. Let me just clean it up a little bit.
A few moments later.
So this is the cleaned up composition. What you can do at the moment is select all of the nodes, right click, make a quick macro if you want. So just give it a name, go to save as group, and this would be in the Fusion, templates, edit, and I guess this would be an effect because we'll put it on top of a clip. So you can give it a name and save it. But we won't be making a macro today. We'll do that in a separate video that will follow this one. So you can right click, settings, save all as. This will be a settings file. So once you have that saved, you can go to the file and simply put it back into a Fusion composition. In case this composition will not open when you restore DaVinci Resolve, I know that this happened to me when I made this tutorial file, but that was in version 18.6.3. When I updated to version 18.6.4, which is the current one, then this file opened perfectly. But before that, it didn't. Point 2 of why not make a template in this video is that I actually don't know which settings I want to be able to change in the template, and point 3 is that I actually want the template to look nice. And just for the sake of it, let's see if everything still works correctly when I change the timeline proxy resolution back to full. It does. In this case, I think it didn't. As you can see, it does not. But this composition also was a bit different than the one we just made. So that's a plus. And I had just this background so you can see that the shadow actually applies. And this is an overlay so you can put on top of a video clip. That's it for this video. If you found it helpful, you know what to do. I'm Simon, and until next time, Jackal, keep it digital.